Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges, and it's finally time. The SFO update has finally been announced, the complete overhaul that you've all been waiting for, the Storm of Chaos. Now, this update will drop on the 27th, but I've teamed up with Venris once again to showcase any changes coming into effect for the game, where there's going to be quite a lot of videos, each focused on each different race. The videos today will focus on some changes coming to races that aren't having such heavy work done to them, as I am currently recovering from a flu and it's quite difficult to actually get some stuff sorted. But with all that being said, let's get started with the Beastmen. We're going to talk about faction and lord effects for each of the legendary lords, as a lot of things have changed. Starting off with Khazrak, Khazrak's faction can recruit units globally. Yeah, you've got a lot better use of global recruitment. Dread cost minus 20% for all unit capacity upgrades. Evasion chance when using beast paths plus 10%. Ambush battle success chance plus 10%. Experience gain for units plus 25% when fighting against the Empire. And finally, a unique unit only available to Khazrak's faction, the Mutated Warhound. We'll talk about that a little bit later. When it comes to Lord effects, we have the following. Reduce bestial rage penalties and detection chance when in hidden encampment stance. Attribute Vanguard deployment for God Gores and Bestigor units in Lord's army. We'll be going over the God Gores a little bit later. Attribute Vanguard deployment for Razorgore chariot units in Lord's army. You're going to want to focus a lot on chariots here. And enables poison attacks for all Ungor units in Lord's army. Finally, melee attack plus 10 for Warhound units in Lord's army. Little fun fact there that yeah, Khazrak actually favoured a lot of Warhounds. Moving on to Malagor the Dark Omen, we've got Dread cost minus 50% for all hero capacity upgrades, unique Horde landmarks with Winds of Magic army abilities, Horde growth plus 4 faction-wide, which is incredibly useful, hero recruit rank plus 5 for Bray Shamans and Great Bray Shamans, and all enemies have increased miscast chance by 10% during battles. Very useful if you're dealing with a lot of enemy spellcasters. Finally, for the Lord effects, we have movement range plus 100% when using the beast paths in Lord's army, enemy casualty replenishment rate minus 100% for enemy armies in the local province, enemy leadership minus 5 for enemy armies in the local province to Malagor, and finally, attribute causes fear for Harpy units in Lord's army. No matter how many buffs Harpies will get, I will still not use them. That's just a personal thing. Morgor the Shadowgave now, we've got the following faction effects. Army ability Veil of Corruption when Morgor reaches level 40 for all armies. Chaos Undivided Corruption plus 4 for all characters faction-wide. Horde building construction costs minus 10%. Very useful, to be honest. Dark Gifts upgrades for Chaos Spawn units. You can make your Chaos Spawns a little bit better, and obviously, you know, this is Morgor, so you expect loads of Chaos Spawn. Casualty replenishment rate plus 4% for Chaos Spawn and Jabberslythe's units per Herdstone. For the Lord effects, we have the following. Raiding Stance is upgraded to Despoiler Raiding Stance, which spreads corruption and attrition. Passive ability Aura or Vile Transmutation. Immune to Athaloran attrition for Lord's army. Morgor will always remain wounded for no more than one turn. This is the usual. Chaos Undivided Corruption plus 10 for local province. And finally, spell resistance 25% for Lord's army. No real big changes for Taurox, but let's talk about it anyway. So faction effects first. Rampage. Maintaining momentum for successive battle victories earns Taurox rewards and bonuses. Dread cost minus 25% for increasing the capacity of Minotaurs, Minotaurs with shields, and Minotaurs with great weapons. Attribute Vanguard deployment for Minotaur units, which is absolutely terrifying. If we go on to the Lord effects, we have the following. Raiding Stance is upgraded to Juggernaut Raiding Stance, which increases campaign movement range but reduces raiding income. Taurox leaves River of Blood effects in regions after winning battles, stacking up to 3 times. Weapon strength plus 25% for Minotaur units for Lord's army, and ability Bloodlust. Blood Beast. Again, fever, making me see things. Alright, jumping into campaign now, and you're going to notice that there's a big change when it comes to research. So research itself has been changed to having separate sections where you'll have various options in different branches, but you'll only be able to pick one. This means that you're going to be able to tailor your faction to your specific playstyle, and it will give you reason to come back to the Beastmen multiple times and try out different styles of play. I've been playing this a few times already. I've had access for a decent amount of time, and really it's pretty cool, because this means that if you're going to be focusing more on skirmishing combat with Khazrak, then you can do so. It's just adding to that effect. It's very, very lore friendly, because no matter how many Beastmen tribes there are, a lot of them are very different in terms of how they actually fight. So yeah, I'm all for this. I think this is a pretty good system. And again, replayability, very, very important, especially with a game like Total War Warhammer. I, for one, have been really enjoying a Morga the Shadowgave campaign right now with extra just bonuses overall to make the faction a lot more terrifying, and yeah, it's pretty fun. But that's not all. You will see that there are some extra lines which are very similar to that of what you already had in vanilla. Keep in mind that these texts are tied in the same way as vanilla, so you're going to have to do specific stuff before you're able to get access to them, but it doesn't really take too long for you to actually do so. Just kind of casually play and you've got that going, no problem. If you're wondering about your God Touch scores and making them a little bit stronger, yes you can, and that is attached to its own little tech line. It's right down here. All you pretty much need to do is build the specific building. They are fairly expensive, you know, it's 10,000, but the bonuses are quite good overall. Plus, they are like your endgame units if you're going for God Touch Gore themes and so on. And believe me, they are incredibly useful. You'll start to see their stat line already, but many of you have already seen it anyway. This is done as a way to show the game off to those who are not familiar to SFO also. Anyways, if we move on to corruption, as you can imagine, everything kind of remains the same. There are some new buildings though, very much focused on a lore-centric stuff. It's a little bit more infrastructure and economy, which I think is actually kind of good, because the Beastmen, yeah, they lack. It's nothing that's going to give them like a proper economy. Keep in mind that these are still freaking angry goats, but just a little bit more flavor and a few little bit more options here and there is always good. The unique buildings themselves are tied to Malagor's faction, so keep that in mind. And like I said, yeah, you have a reason to play as all four of the lords if you want different style of play. And when you build herdstones, you will have access to herdstone enhancement buildings. These are your special God Touch buildings, right? So one's dedicated to Khorne, the other's to Slaanesh, the other one to Nurgle, and the other one to Tzeentch. Getting to the end of it, so by tier 3, will also allow you to be able to recruit your specific units, so Khorngors, Pestigors, Zalangors, and Sangors. There's a lot of bonuses there, some of which are even faction-wide, so it's going to give you a reason to get more of these herdstones up and running. Mind you, it's a core mechanic for your faction, but you'd be surprised how many people I've spoken to which just don't really take advantage of making multiple herdstones as soon as possible. Anyways, let's start looking at some unique units. So here we have the Mutated Warhound, a single entity monster which is only available to Khazrak, and yeah, it's pretty good, right? So it's capable, it's a legendary unit, it's a duelist, it's good to snipe out characters and so on. Think of it as, well, pretty much just how you use the battle cats for Kislev. It's in the same vein, however, it's much more powerful, you know, it's got access to some poison, and in general, it's just pretty brutal. I absolutely love this unit, I think it's pretty cool. It's something which is a bit of a weird thing that we don't actually have, like, mutated warhounds, like, really buffed up ones, or at least just yet. But you never know in the future. Going on to the God Touch scores, these are available to all the factions of the Beastmen, and the first ones are the Pestigors, right? So they use a mace and a shield, they've got regeneration, they're very resilient. They're a tanky unit, which is actually kind of useful for the Beastmen. You kind of need a little bit more tanking in your faction. And in general, yeah, they're a good front line. I absolutely love them. These God Touch scores themselves are based on the very old miniatures back in the day. I think Games Workshop actually sold them as a made-to-order recently, or about a year ago. But yeah, it's great to see these because it definitely brings the nostalgia feel in, especially if you're one of those old-school tabletop players like myself. And it's very noticeable when you start looking at the Slangors. So, another strong unit. These have got Vanguard, armor-piercing melee, they've got Stalk too. They're quite fast to move around. Yeah, you want these if you're going to be moving around to focus on more of a skirmishing type of warfare, which, you know, you're a beastman, so why wouldn't you? Plus, you know, Slaanesh is the best Chaos God, so the Slangors are the best unit, and I'll fight anyone who says otherwise. Right, next we have the Khorngors. Surprise, surprise, they worship Khorne, and it's a unit which I always kind of wanted in the tabletop in terms of weapon variety. I'd love Pestigors with additional hand weapons. This is on the tabletop, of course. So high physical resistance, very high magical resistance. They're basically juggernauts. They do area of attacks, they're anti-infantry, they're melee experts. It's an all-around good unit if you want a blender right at the front, just ripping apart anything that gets in front of it. And again, they look freaking cool. I love the heads. They look really, really nice. in general, like the quality for these God Touch scores is always just stellar. And then lastly, we have the Zangors, a range unit, a very powerful one at that, because they've got magical attacks, they've got Vanguard too, and yeah, you know, they've got anti-large. The fact is 175 range is nothing to sniff at. You know, having a high-tier archer with a Beastmen makes them absolutely terrifying, as they'll be able to go toe-to-toe with a decent amount of range units with other factions. So not a lot of changes to the Beastmen, but that's fair, to be honest. Their rework that came in the Silence and the Fury was actually quite good. This is more giving them a little bit more originality and just giving them a little bit of more flavor to give you more reason to actually have another playthrough with the Beastmen, and I think that works out quite well. I love the God Touch Gores, they're just really, really cool. It harkens back to older editions. God, I really should paint up my Pestigores at some point. But without getting distracted, yeah, this is a really nice way just to add in a little bit of extra flavor to the Beastmen and give you another reason just to have another round with the Goat Boys. Yeah, they're not one of the most popular factions, but I've got a soft spot in my heart for them, mostly because I keep hoping that they're going to be decent one day in the tabletop. I mean, it's never going to happen, but you never know. Anyways, with all that being said, that's it for the Beastmen changes. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. Then we will also be checking the comments on these videos to see what you guys think about the mod, and we'll be back a little bit later on with another faction focus. It'll be a little bit larger.